very small percentage have ADHD, ADD. We're seeing a lot of incidents of bipolar disorder. So where do we start? Really, the problem is, how do you get people to open up or even look at these problems that are prevalent, right? So we actually go in and help the parent fill out a circular and, and take a little quiz of sorts about their own child and, how they react at home to certain situations. We also have that done on the teacher side because that's where they spend most of their time at, right? So, and then these results are kind of combined to see if there are any red flags, and we just bring it to the attention of the parent. It could be simple behavioral issues, but which is most often, but we do come across quite a few challenges in terms of more serious mental health issues. So.
Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to our channel, please consider subscribing to it and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss an update. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very accomplished entrepreneur from India, fellow YPO member, Swathy Rohit. Swathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Swathy is the founder CEO of Basix, a pediatric health platform. She's the chief operating officer of the SNR Trust. She is a past chair of the FICCI Ladies Organization, and as I mentioned earlier, she's a fellow YPO member from Bangalore. Swathy, let's talk about Basix. Tell me about what you do here.
Basix is a digital healthcare platform, and a pediatric platform as such. So I was actually in healthcare for about 15 years, so ran a 1,000-bed hospital out of India. Mm-hmm. And while I was doing that, I also started a firm in the school services and product space. I'm also a mother to a 15-year-old, so constantly when I look around and look at kids, my son's age or younger kids in India, I noticed a lot of trends about that, parents as well as children, right? When it comes to our kids, what happens is we see them spending about, 7 hours either in online classes, TV, gadgets, and and you notice and talk to kids of various ages from 3 above, you hear words like anxiety and stress, and this is not something that's normal or natural to hear from 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds talking about anxiety, and also the prevalence of like obesity, for example. I looked at some statistics that really shocked me when it came across my desk. In India, it's about 22%, and because of screen time usage, myopia, which is also in 20 percentile rate. So all these things kind of, shocked me a little bit. And I said, all right, let's look at, the pediatric healthcare. What are we doing right in this country? What are we doing wrong? And that made me look at myself first as a parent, right? So I noticed that typically guilty is charged as well, not just other parents, but me too. We don't really look at our children's health. We look at nutritional loosely, saying, what are they eating, all of that. But generally, if I came down to it, unless they had severe behavioral issues or an illness, we tend to kind of, in the whole journey of life, really not pay too much attention to what on a micro level goes on with our kids. So we started off with that premise, saying, parents are largely lazy and very busy. So how can we actually get them to pay attention? And today we have tons of content at you. It's in WhatsApp, Facebook, social media. And you read a lot of content about kids, about various things that are happening to kids. But, for a parent to actually notice and say, what, are they talking about my child? Unless they had data about their child saying, listen, your child is either pre-diabetic or your child is, has levels of anxiety, which is not really that normal. Unless you had specifics, right, for a parent, you don't really think it's for your child, and content just goes by you constantly. So you read and absorb a little bit about it, but do nothing about it. So we started off with that whole, question, saying, what is it that's going to make a parent actually pay attention, and what are the things that a parent should be paying attention to about their school-going children? And that's what got us thinking and started with Basix. So we're a platform that goes into schools. We set up a health clinic there. Most of India's schools don't have health clinics or a health office in the school. So we set up a clinic there. We send a pediatrician, an ophthalmologist, a mental health counselor, and a dentist in and do this complete holistic evaluation of each child. And the parent gets all this information, and this is also pegged to the median. So they really look at the strengths of their children and where they could be better and their weaknesses, and we connect them to resources, be it mental health, physical health, emotional or social. So that's what
Wow.
Health Basics
Wow.
does. Sorry to give you a long-winded
No,
response.
that's amazing. But to continue the discussion, you mentioned that two of the challenges you did mention in your comment was obesity and myopia. What are some of the other pediatric health challenges our children are facing?
It's actually mental health is really, really big. I didn't, again, the statistics out of India shocked me. I was looking at a recent study from NIMHANS and the World Economic Forum, a whole bunch of these statistics. I'm not going to put statistics out because it's kind of alarming when you say, 1 in 4 kids, 1 in 5 kids. So
Right.
that is kind of alarming as a parent. But that really, as a parent, even, there's still a lot of social stigma in admitting mental health challenges for every child. So normally, if your child was ill, you'd call either a relative or a friend and ask for, a reference or this thing. But if you came up with a mental health challenge regarding your child, we actually took a survey of about 85,000 parents, and of that, 96% said they would not reach out normal sources to actually get advice or referrals for a mental health related issue for their child. So there is still that stigma. So we're making it possible to be able to access mental health resources at the comfort of their home, or in a pediatrician mental health counselor.
Amazing. And in today's day and age, to think of young parents not accepting it is a little difficult. But when you talk of mental health, I'm assuming you're talking primarily stress.
Not necessarily. We have seen typically, very small percentage have ADHD, ADD. We're seeing a lot of incidents of bipolar disorder. So where do we start? Really, the problem is, how do you get people to open up or even look at these problems that are prevalent, right? So we actually go in and help the parent fill out a circular, and and take a little quiz of sorts about their own child, and how they react at home to certain situations. We also have that done on the teacher side, because that's where they spend most of their time at, right? So, and then these results are kind of combined to see if there are any red flags, and we just bring it to the attention of the parent. It could be simple behavioral issues, but which is most often, but we do come across quite a few challenges in terms of more serious mental health issues. So.
Amazing. I was talking to some other school leaders, and they were saying that a lot of problems that they face from a school perspective is that Indian parents, when they send the child to school, they just assume that now school is responsible.
Absolutely.
And they just hand over the so-called responsibility for those 8-9 hours.
So Indian parents primarily, again, our focus is a lot on education and, getting grades, and getting into good colleges. So when you're so focused on that, you're really not paying very much attention to the other side, right? Even soft skills, for example, communication issues. Today, you see a lot of children really finding it difficult to break that barrier, even when they go into jobs, right? Even as simple as just regular communication issues crop up. And so I think, Indian parents should not look at schools as being the one-stop shop, but that does not absolve schools of also,
absolutely.
I think health should be a large portion of what they also focus on. Students spend most of their time in school, so I think it's a two-way thing. So schools should take responsibility for certain amounts of involvement in the
So tell me, you have an app for Health Basics.
Yes.
I wanted to, in fact, I looked at it and I was wondering, I'm a parent, but my children are 36 and 33. I was wondering how is the reaction of parents to getting so much more health related information on their children?
So we're actually very specific in the content that we, so since we know the weaknesses and strengths of your child. So we actually send specific content that's very tailor-made for the child. And this is where I say, like we should look at a 30,000 feet view and say, what is the future of healthcare? It's not shooting bullets in the dark and saying something will hit them, but it's being very specific. And I think the more data we have about our own child, it helps us also come up with strategies to better understand our children and be very specific in how we treat them. I think the future of healthcare is also in precision medicine and not so much, and very personalized healthcare and not so much a generalized approach like we see today. I think healthcare, that being said, I think healthcare is fantastic today, but I think there's a lot that can be done in a lot of avenues to be more personalized. And we're going as far as saying in the future we'll have AI-led personal doctors who will be each one's like a little health coach or something. You'll have your own physician in your pocket, literally. So who's very who has all the data about you and should be able to help you make better choices.
How nice. And a question to you would be that what is the role of the local state government in all these health related matters, because this is affecting all children of every state?
Sure. So specifically speaking about India, so the bottom 40% is actually covered with some really good government schemes by the Ayushman Bharat scheme. They have some great model programs which do take care of individual level, like child assessments in schools. They do have the doctors there. They do have primary health care present at these local public health centers. So the government is taking care of the bottom 40%. And the top 20% in India can actually afford good healthcare and have the ability to have all these resources. But it's this missing middle of the middle 40% that we're really wanting to make a huge impact in the lives of, because they are not insured, one, and two, the data or the information that they get is also not, they're actually really busy parents. These are where you see both parents extremely busy trying to make a living and want better for their children. And we're just, a small part of, so the government does play a huge role in the bottom 40% of India's population. So.
Amazing. So Swathy, now let's move to another segment of our conversation, which is let's talk about the SNR Trust. When I was reading about you, you got so much going on there. So that you must tell our viewers and listeners, what do you do at the trust?
The trust was actually primarily founded to impart education, irrespective of class or anything at all, or status, and a good level of education. So constantly you'll see a lot of the charitable trusts having schools, but they'll be slightly lower end schools. But we're saying, let's work on the kids, give them the best. And that's what we've always stood for. We have 17 educational institutions, colleges and schools under the trust banner. And our motto has been, education at a subsidized, cost, so that it makes it affordable for everybody. And we're also big into the promotion of athletes and sports, and we feel that's a very important part of children's lives. We also have a propensity to pay 1,000-bed hospital. So we have a high-end 250 beds that subsidizes the 750 free and propensity to pay beds. So that's what the trust was set out to do, and that's what we do on a daily basis.
So you're in two of the, as they say, the hottest sectors, education and health.
I don't know about the hottest sectors, but I think with the largest social and impact. Yes, so very grateful, and has been the best running of my life.
Set up by you or by another family member?
The trust actually was set up by my great grandfather.
Your great grandfather.
Yes.
Okay. So it's been in the family for a very long time.
Yes, 60 odd years. Yes.
Very nice. And from an education perspective, what are some of the challenges you face?
When it comes to education, India still largely is with the rote method. So to constantly push parents to actually see the merit in not just working towards grades, but also understanding concepts, the whole STEM concept. That's actually coming down, and I think finally parents are starting to get the importance of logic, the importance of actually understanding concepts versus just working towards grades. So there's always that fine balance that we're trying to strike and get. So our main goal, or rather our biggest challenge, has been to get parents to also look at other things, not just the sciences, but
Mhm.
also liberal arts, as
Correct.
well as pay attention to music, the arts, theater, all of that also, as and sports. So
Mm.
we're big in promoting sports and saying that that really is also an avenue that India and Indian parents should look at to help their children with.
Talking to you, I'm just thinking, I'm 64 years old. And when I was in school, I'm talking of the 70s, uh, doctor, lawyer, engineer were the three professions. And if you were very bright, maybe an IAS. Looks like nothing has changed.
Well, now we have the tech sector as well,
Now
who's
the tech sector.
there, and everybody wants to, the startup ecosystem is, and the entrepreneurial ecosystem as well. So
Yeah.
that's one positive. So we have a little bit of a
One more.
change there.
One more alternative is
That's pretty much it. So.
wonderful. Okay, so now I'm going to move to the next part, and I want to talk a little bit about gender diversity. You know, uh, I've spoken to many people, and a lot of them actually say that gender diversity is being talked about a lot in India. It's things are beginning to happen, but not enough is happening. I'd love to understand your thoughts because you're right at the very top.
So I recently was writing an article on this, and
Yeah.
I'm constantly saying we should do more. At the end of the day, I know we all talk about it, but how many of us in our own industries look at
Hmm.
it and say we're truly diverse? So I'm lucky that even in our trust that was formed that many number of years ago, we have equal rights for women. So I'm
Okay.
part of the board only because of that.
Hmm.
Most of the trusts in India even don't have women on their boards.
Hmm.
So I think we talk about inclusivity, but whoever I meet, I actually talk about gender inclusivity and talk about how it's really important to have women, and one little change that I'm able to do in all our organizations, we actually walk the talk, and we do have a lot of women heads of institutions, and I think it's really important to have role models to look up to, and
Hmm.
I had that growing up in our a female prime minister. So I never thought in my life that there's something that I couldn't do, because
Hmm.
India did set a good example then, and I hope that we keep pushing the boundary. I know it's a lot of work, but I think we'll get there someday. But we're
Hmm.
still a work in progress right now.
Because someone called me the other day and said that he's an advisor to some group of companies and said that, can you recommend a woman to join the board? And I said, I know many women who'd be very good to join the board, but I don't think any of them will accept because of what you're saying. If you were to tell me that you want their skills or you want their knowledge, they will consider it. But if you just say, I want a woman on my board because the Companies Act requires it or the law requires it, they won't join.
True, very true. That's the first step, I suppose. Something's better than nothing. So, as I said, I'll take. I think women should get into these positions and change this thing to from a requirement to actually wanting women on the board. And I think we should set examples.
And yet, I have spoken to several women who say that why should there be any special things for us? We've got to be so. I think there's a lot of conflict going on in this discussion.
I used to be on the other side of, why should there be a special place, until I actually started raising capital for my startup. Uh,
Okay.
then I realized the true biases out there. I was born into a privileged family. I do understand that. But when I went there with nothing and just on my own merit had to raise capital, I did realize there is a gender bias. Truly,
Mm.
I could lie and say, what, we're doing a lot, but that's the first time I actually came to the other side and said, yes, we do need places where we have to have rules that say, have a woman there. I think everybody needs to get a taste for it, and then I think everything will fall in place. So, and I
Very
think
interesting. Very interesting. So, Swati, now I'm going to move to the last segment of our conversation, which is some questions for you personally. My first question is that, you've done so many things, run a 1,000-bed hospital, education, your own startup, giving back so much. What would you say are three key milestones in your life or your career so far?
um, I'd say one is, of course, for everybody, it will be like, the birth of your child, but it's very
Mhm.
special for me because I actually almost died while giving birth. So,
Mhm.
that ability to bounce back after a huge, life altering thing. It taught me many things about myself, and I think understanding oneself is. So I was really grateful for the opportunity to actually live again, and
Correct.
have the opportunity
Absolutely.
to come back out there, and
And wish you a very, very long life. Hmm.
that's one milestone in my life that really did teach me a lot of things. And second was actually starting something out on my own, completely from scratch, completely on my own, completely from with zero money, raising and starting from zero. So I think that taught me a lot of stuff, especially with resilience, and how long trust and reliability actually takes you. That's what I learned from there. And
Hmm.
so I think those would be the two biggest milestones in my life so
Interesting.
far. So,
And my next question is that for someone who's in education and healthcare, what are some of the core values you believe in?
so as I was saying from earlier, I think number one is trust and reliability. I think if your team doesn't see that in you, then the chances of you actually building an organization would be difficult. You can build a small company, you can run it for a few years, but if you want to build an organization and make it last the time, I think reliability and trust number one. And I would say again resilience, because you constantly get
Hmm.
you know lots of things thrown at you, but you just have to keep believing and keep going. And third is honesty. So I really value people who are honest. It's most often not the most easiest thing to do, or
Correct.
but honesty is the third. So
Very interesting. My next question is that from where you stand today, as you look at your life so far and as you think of all the things that you will do, what does success mean to Swati?
so I think I'd love this one quote from Maya Angelou that I always, it's liking myself,
Mhm.
liking what I do, and liking how I do it. So it's the perfect place where I'm really proud of what I'm doing and how I'm actually getting there and how it makes me feel. So
Mm.
that would be success to me, when I'm able to appreciate that and look at myself and say, I really like what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So
Fantastic.
to me, that's
And and a follow-on question from that is who or what inspires you to keep pushing yourself to do so many things?
So I actually constantly draw a lot of energy, and I'm a social person by nature. So from
Mhm.
the people around me, and it's not, I don't need great people who really achieve things in their life. For example, the other day, the flower seller outside the temple, she taught me something that stood with will stand with me for the rest of my life. So
Mhm.
she was telling her husband on how she's self-made, and she's like, it's fine, we'll get through this crisis. And that conversation so much,
Mhm.
you learn every day. I come across people, I'm lucky to actually have be able to draw inspiration from, and it's completely my environment that I draw inspiration from.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And my last question to you, Swati, and this is a question on failure. And we did talk about this a little earlier. I've often said, and I have a new book that came out on 18th of March on failure. And I've often said, parents in India, or that for that matter in South Asia, don't teach children it's okay to fail. We are always told come first in class, go to the head of the line, and that manifests itself in our behavior patterns. And today I've learned from you that that could lead to stress as well. My question to you is that what have been some of your learnings from some of your mistakes?
So, honestly, it. I'd lived most of my life in a very privileged setting. So when I came and started my very first company, we actually didn't do too well, and I've had a couple of failures. But the one thing that I learned from all of this is the biggest thing that I had to overcome was the fear of failure. Truth,
Correct.
that was the mindset I think a lot of Indian parents tend to inculcate, or rather, people have
Mm.
the fear of failure. Once you go through that emotion, you're like, this wasn't so bad, like I've learned so many things. So I think to keep pushing yourself, putting yourself in hard places, and and coming out of it. And I think everybody learns that the fear of failure was actually totally unwarranted, so it wasn't so bad a place to be. And I also think you should learn from your lessons. Of course, you should learn lessons along the way to not repeat those
Mm.
mistakes.
Mm.
But I think some my greatest learning has been that I overcame the fear of failure because I failed. So, and I urge everyone to go out there and fail a couple of times to get over it. So you
Very
get
well.
both.
Very, very well said. Swati, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I've loved our conversation and how with you're building this health platform with so much passion. I've also learned so much about challenges children are facing today. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Pleasure was all mine. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Tell our story. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.